Jai Jinendra. Welcome to Adults Class 2, Practical Applications of Jainism. Let's start with the Nokar mantra. Namo Arhantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Ujjayanam, Namo Luve Savasaranam, Eso Pachanamo Karo Sabha Papa Panasano, Mangalalancha Savesim, Paramam Have Mangala. So, who remembers why we say Logasa?
To recite all 24 Tirthankars.
Right. It's an easy way to remember the names of the 24 Tirthankars. And why do we want to remember their names?
So we could be like them.
That's right. So if we remember their names, then we remember their life. And we remember what qualities they stood for in their life. And we use that to apply to our own life, to increase the quality of our own life. As you know, this class has been, is, and will always be about increasing the quality of your own life through Jain principles. So let's talk about the last one, Mahavir. Let's talk about stories from his life, in case you didn't know that. That way, when we say Logasa, or we say the sutra for Mahavir Bhagwan, or we say different things, then, well, we know what we're trying to aspire to. So Mahavir's birth name was Vardhaman. He was born in about 599 BCE. He was a real person. There is evidence of his having lived. He was born near what is now known as Bihar, India. His mother was Queen Trishla, and his father was King Siddhartha. He was born in a royal family of the Kshatriya class. At age 30, he renounced his life in search of spiritual liberation. And he spent 12 years in deep meditation, after which he achieved Kevalnyan under a tree. He taught then for over 30 years, and of course he set up the fourfold order of sadhus, sadhvis, shravaks, and shravikas. Hi, how are you doing? Welcome. We're talking about Mahavir today. He is often depicted in art as barefoot, serene, meditative, and typically shown with the lion, so we know who he is, and the lion represents bravery. So, when Mahavir was still Vardhaman, he was in school with his schoolmates. He was, of course, a prince, and he was born in the royal class. One day he's playing in the schoolyard with his schoolmates. Then the children suddenly became frightened and ran, because a ferocious demon, or a rakshasa, appeared out of nowhere. This demon was huge, with scary eyes and a booming voice. He began roaring and threatening the children, trying to frighten them. Mahavir, Vardhaman, then, stood there calm and unafraid and looked directly at the demon. The demon laughed and said, "Aren't you afraid of me, boy?" And Mahavir said, "No. You have no power over me unless I give you the power with my fear." So the demon got angry and he leapt onto Vardhaman's shoulders. But Vardhaman didn't flinch. Instead, he gently grabbed the demon and threw him to the ground with his incredible strength. Surprised and defeated, the demon vanished, and peace returned to the schoolyard. And from that day on, Vardhaman was known as Mahavir, or Great Hero. Now, this story always bothered me. That is, why are we celebrating violence? Hey, come on in. Hey, how you doing? We just recounted the story where Mahavir threw a demon to the ground because he was so courageous. But why are we celebrating violence? Is it Mahavir's whole deal non-violence?
But that comes later on his life, right? When he realizes that.
Okay, so, but we still tell the story. He might have realized it later, but why are we still telling our children this story and saying, well, it's okay to be violent, and you should be violent. You should be courageous. We revere Mahavir for being courageous. His symbol is the lion.
Is he trying to prevent further violence?
That's right.
With his actions?
Yes, that is one of the reasons. He is protecting the people, and he's trying to protect further violence. That's That's one of the reasons we celebrate his courageousness there. Another reason is that it is sometimes more courageous to not be violent than to be violent. So I'll give you an example. Is it more courageous to step on a cockroach, or is it more courageous to pick it up and put it outside?
Pick it up and put it outside.
Right. So a lot of times the more courageous action is the less violent one. Okay? And so here, it is courageous to protect people. And if you think about your own life, when you are in a state of fear, you perform more actions that cause bund out of that fear than if you were not in a state of fear, if you were courageous. Just like stepping on a cockroach. You might panic, right? And you might step on it. Well, that's a lot worse than if you didn't panic and if you were courageous and you calmly assessed the situation and used a glass or a paper or whatever to pick the cockroach up and put it outside, right? And so it is, what we celebrate is not the courage to do violence, but the courage to remain calm in a stressful situation so that you don't cause further bump. Hi, come on in. How you doing? Oh, you can sit up. Don't worry. Scoot on up. We're talking about stories about Mahavir today, and we just explained why the story with the demon is not celebrating violence, even though it does seem that way. That is, courage doesn't mean fighting out of anger, right? And the real strength is inner strength. And courage means not succumbing to passions, right? And so that's why we celebrate his physical beatdown of this demon. Questions about that? Or is anybody still confused? You look like you're still confused.
No, I'm just thinking.
Oh, okay. Tell us what you're thinking about.
Like, to prevent violence, you have to be more courageous. That
In
means
some
you're not-
situations.
Yeah, and that means you're not following your passion.
Right.
That's why I'm just trying to connect that.
Right. It is more courageous not to panic, not to succumb to emotions, right? And it is more courageous to be still and to be calm in certain situations. And that's the courage that we're celebrating. We're not celebrating the courage that it takes to perform violence against a demon or another person. We're celebrating the courage that it takes to not succumb to your passions. Okay, how about another one? So after taking Diksha, Mahavir started giving away all his possessions. And then a Brahmin named Devrishi came to him and said, "Hey, I was out of town while you were giving all this stuff away. I need something too." And Mahavir didn't have anything. He just had a single piece of cloth. So Mahavir ripped his cloth in half and gave Devrishi half his cloth. So it started walking away. And Devrishi started following him because he saw this cloth and is like, "This is an excellent piece of cloth. I need more." And so he followed him, and he kept following him for a long time. And then Mahavir's cloth got entangled in a piece of shrubbery. And he knew that Rishi was following him, and he knew that he was greedy. But Mahavir didn't do anything. He didn't try to take the cloth out of the shrubbery. He didn't try to look back. He didn't even look back. He just kept on walking, and he left the cloth there. And Devrishi took it. So now, in this story, what does the cloth represent?
Attachments.
The cloth represents attachments. That's right. Mahavir Swami didn't have any attachments, and he was happy to let it go, even if somebody else was being greedy for his things, the only things that he had. What does Devrishi represent?
Greed.
Greed, that's right. And so when we think about this story, we're supposed to think about how we are constantly Devrishi, right? we're constantly following the things that we're attached to. We're following it our whole lives. Okay? That's all we're doing. And to an enlightened person, that's what it looks like. That's what we look like. We look like Devrishi. We look like somebody skulking behind somebody else waiting for something that's not theirs. Right? Because what is stealing?
Taking something that wasn't freely given to you.
Stealing is taking something that wasn't freely given to you. So if I see a quarter on the ground and I pick it up, is that stealing?
Yes.
Yes, right? And so that's what we look like. We look like our lives to other people. That's what we look like. We look like thieves. We're not walking and experiencing life and taking what life freely gives us. Rather, we're skulking about. We're trying to take things that aren't ours. We're trying to take this cloth. And once we have the cloth, guess what? We want more, right? So the cloth represents money, right? Once we have money, we want more money. Once we have power, we want more power. Once we have things, we want more things. And that's what leads us into this cycle of attachment, and that's what leads us into the cycle of life and death. Questions or comments about that?
So what should we do with that coin then?
Leave it there.
Basically, better to pick it up and donate or
Yeah,
something.
that's what I
Like
was
that's what
thinking.
usually we teach to
Me
kids.
too, yeah. I was like, but how about somebody's putting their feet on it or, just walking? Isn't it?
Well, was the coin freely given to you? No, so then you stole it. So
It's
that's
like
like
finders
that's like
keepers,
me
right?
stealing from this person and saying it's okay because I donated it to the temple. Is that right? If I stole from you, is it okay if I gave that money to the temple?
No, but if that person dropped it or whatever, they're not going to come back for that coin anyways. So
How do
might
you
as
know?
well.
I've often come back for things that I've dropped.
No, I mean if it's a wallet, you will turn it into like front desk or something. But it's
Sure.
like a
So
coin.
what's the difference between a coin and a wallet?
The value, I would say.
Oh, so now does it depend on the value whether something's right or wrong?
No, but
But what I'm
what
saying-
what if it's paper money and like it's
Yeah.
raining and it's
Yeah.
going to get destroyed? Is that okay?
Your
Who cares
intentions
if
are
money
better,
gets
right?
destroyed? Do you care if money gets
It's
destroyed?
not my money, so I shouldn't care.
Do you care if it was your own money? Should you care if it got destroyed?
If it was my own,
He's
yes.
saying yeah. So you care if your money gets destroyed? Oh, I guess you weren't here when we ripped up money, right? Does anybody remember that? Maybe we should do it again.
No.
No, but
She didn't like that part.
I wasn't there.
Oh, step on
Her husband ripped up his
Oh.
money.
He ripped up his money, not my money.
I see. And so what we're talking about now is very deep-seated ideas of ownership and value and money and what it represents, right? It's very hard to look at money and see a piece of paper. It's incredibly hard, okay? Let's try to do it right now. All right. Here is money, right? Can you see that it's a piece of paper? It's very hard. No, I don't think you can. Okay? You only see what this can buy you. That is, you only see what this represents. Okay? It's very hard for you to look at this and see a piece of paper. You have to look at it for a long, long time to say, oh, yeah, it's paper. It might help if I write on it, Does that help? Does that help you see that it's a piece of paper? No? It
No.
still looks like money. You still want it, right? You're still wondering what I'm doing out with this, right? Because that's what it is. So if you see this on the ground, are you going to pick it up? I put it on the ground, right? Are you going to pick it up?
If I
Probably.
see you put it, I will ask you, you dropped the money. And if nobody's there, then there's
Right.
a different way to deal with it.
Right. Very, very hard. I encourage you to do this, I encourage you to do this. I encourage you to rip up your money. I encourage you to do that.
David.
It is money. No, I'm telling you, it's money. It's a piece of paper. Okay? It doesn't mean anything.
But
Yeah.
it is.
So exactly a minute ago when you took the note out, this was exactly what I knew that you would do with that. Okay, so in the between Thursday and Friday, the stock market went down by 12%, right?
Right.
So how many of us felt something?
Right.
That is attachment,
For certain.
right? So I recently visited India, and then one of my uncles he actually built a temple, and then there were Jain Munis Maharaj coming there, and then I saw them, and then I heard their pravachan, and basically the same concept of, and then I came to know how do they live on a daily basis, right? They just have one meal, no expectations, no attachments. Even if they don't get the meal, that's fine. Whatever you give them, they eat it. So conceptually, the concept of not being attached, just I kept on thinking about it. So coming back, I thought to myself, with whatever keeps happening around us, monetarily, like some of us, I used to be very attached. So I'm so the way I was never greedy about money, but whatever I have, if I'm losing value to it, I used to feel something in my mind, in my body, right? And for the very first time, when the stock market went down by 12%, not that I have tons of money in the invested in stocks, but I did not feel much about it, and I would address that only because of my trip back to India, hearing them out, seeing them for 2 whole days, how they live and etc. I think that really helped me trying to stay detached. So that's just my 2 cents of sharing.
And did that feel good when you had that realization that, hey, this isn't hitting me as hard as it might have before?
Yes.
And so that's how Jain principles increase the quality of your life right now. Okay, whether you believe there's an afterlife or not, whether you believe you're a soul or not, whether you believe you're going to a different life or not. Let's say you don't believe any of those things. If you can increase the quality of this life right now by applying Jain principles to your life. Yeah.
Wait, I don't want to comment. Wouldn't you say that, like, for example, he said detachment from money, but when you're talking about quality of life, money can directly improve the quality of life, not just for yourself, but for your kids, for your family, etc., etc. So when you're talking about the people in India who are so detached, have no material beings, but they have that privilege of not having to worry about anything because they don't have a responsibility to anyone else to try to have kids or anything like that, where they want to give them a good quality of life, where they're only worrying about themselves. So in that case, isn't that not the same way applicable to us? Because we can't always be so detached, because we have to be responsible for other people as well and maintain their quality of life through money.
Great question. So the first thing you said, I have 2 comments about the things that you said. The first things that you said are money increases the quality of your life. How does money increase the quality of your life?
You can talk about direct access to healthcare, sanitation, like basically every metric.
So you're talking about the body, but are you a body?
Yeah.
No. You're a soul, trapped in a body. Okay? So that's one of the things we have to remember, is that who you are. Okay? The second thing I'd like to comment about what you said is sadhus and sadhvis don't have any responsibilities because they are propped up by the shravaks and shravikas. For example, if everybody became a sadhu and sadhvi, then whose house would we go to ask for food, right? That shouldn't stop you from becoming a sadhu or sadhvi if you think about what happens if everybody were to become a sadhu and sadhvi. If everybody were to become a sadhu and sadhvi, they'd find some other way to get food, right? They'd find some other way to get what they need. And so don't let that affect your life right now about hypothetical situations about, well, what would happen if everybody did this? Or what would happen if we all decided that money was a piece of paper? Would society collapse? No, we'd find some other way to get along.
Sorry.
Hi, how are you
Jai
doing?
Jinendra, how are
Jai
you?
Jinendra.
You guys collect the donation here or no?
We can. How much would you like?
My kids are donating, so I'm like, I don't know if there's an adult class is donating money or not.
Sure, we'd love to. How much would you like to
Okay, we'll
donate?
let you know. My kids will decide 7 to 12 graders where they want to donate to charity. They donating $500 to youth, and all the class kids donating the money too. So I'll tell you how much. So if I need cover up to 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,400, I'll let you know. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you asked a number of questions within that question. Did that help you at all?
Yes and no. I feel like when you're saying that, like, are you glorifying their lifestyle? Like, are you saying they're living a better life because they're so detached?
Absolutely. And the more detached you get, the better your life will be.
But isn't that selfish to say, oh, my life is better than you because I'm so detached from all these material goods, but I'm still going to go to other people's houses and ask them for their material goods, their food?
Right. So they're not gloating. A sadhu and sadhvi is not gloating about how detached they are. But guess what? If they don't get any food, do they get angry?
No.
No. What happens?
They do.
They go hungry,
They
right?
go hungry.
So I wouldn't characterize it as gloating. If you're upset that they get to ask for food and you don't get to ask for food, well, maybe you should try asking for food and see how far that gets you. I think it'll get you really far.
He's just a newbie. It's like the first time he came.
No
But I'm
problem.
glad he
We're
showed
happy.
interest, so.
We're happy to have everybody. I hope that everybody gets something out of this class.
Yeah, well, he also mentioned that most people in this class, have a responsibility to our own family. So
Right.
we can't just abandon them, right? I
Right.
mean, it wouldn't be fair to them because, like, I have little kids, right? Like, they didn't ask to be abandoned.
That's right. Well, unfortunately, I can only give you the truth. I can't make it sound good or put it any other way. And your family is an attachment that you have. And should you be trying to get rid of those attachments? Yes, you should. You should be trying to get rid of those attachments. Does anybody remember the story of Mahavir and Gautam Swami?
Yes.
Right? So Gautam Swami learned the very hard way that the attachment to his family was the only thing that was keeping him from Kevalnya. So you do have a responsibility to your family, and that responsibility is causing you pain, and it's causing your life it's causing you suffering, and it's causing you not to have the quality of life that you could have. And that's the unfortunate truth.
So I have a comment. Like I understand the bigger picture of this whole thing is, yes, we are a soul, and for us normal people who are down at the ladder, it's not practically possible to think like not to give up everything, right? So for us, I would think like being more content, like he explained, right? Not feeling about losing the money, but yet being content and be a little bit responsible about family, but not being greedy about it is the way to go.
That's great.
Hopefully, eventually, we'll get to the point where we are soul and we don't.
When your kids move
But,
out
yeah,
of the house.
I don't know. For me, I don't think it's going to happen in this whatever life cycle, but at least getting to it a little bit at a time, taking small steps.
That's great. I love that. We don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Just because we realize we can't get rid of our family or we can't ever live without a bank account, that doesn't mean we can't progress spiritually and do what we can do. It's okay to say, hey, I'm never going to get rid of my family, Timur. What are you talking about? You know? Okay, I understand. But can you at least get rid of your attachment to watching TV every day? You know, let's start with what we can do, right?
I think
And
we
let's
also talked about like keeping certain number of items in the house or decluttering, like some of the topics we covered previously.
Right.
So the Jain Munis whom I met, unlike you would think that they become a Muni because they don't have much for them. It's actually opposite of that.
Yeah.
One of the Jain, the female, I forgot the term.
Sadhvi.
Sadhvis, yeah. So she was a PhD, and the Jain. I met 3 Munis. 2 of them were bachelors, and the third one was a master's. One of them spoke in English. So it's unlike what we think. They are very well educated, but at some point in their life, they are able to let go of the attachments, and take that path. And that's what I was trying to understand is what really makes them do that. How have they reached to that point? Is what I that's what comes to my mind is how does it happen that they reach to that point?
So it happens to different people in different ways, but one of the ways it happens is people realize the truth that they are a soul. The minute you realize you're a soul, and the minute you realize that your body is an attachment that you have, you will walk away and just never stop walking. You'll leave your wallet, your phone, your keys here. You'll leave your car here. You'll just keep walking, and you'll never stop walking. Okay? So that's one of the things that happen. Another thing that some people experience is, well, what is the point of doing all this? They get all this material stuff. They have all this money. They have all this thing, and they don't find themselves happy. And they thought they would be happy. And then they realize that, well, happiness comes from the inside, and how do I do that? And they realize it like that. Another way people do it is they see this attachment stuff early, and they say, well, how can I be less attached? And it's like, oh, these people are less attached. Like, are they happy? And they ask them, and they say, oh, it does seem like they're happy. And then that's how they realize it. So it happens in different ways for different people, and it depends on which kind of path you take to get there.
I guess the definition of quality of life, it explains that happiness, like how you're happy, like that if you don't have much or you're detached, you're more happier. So that is the quality of life. And we think materialistic attachment, like having lot of things, is way to happiness.
Right.
But it is other way.
Has anybody ever experienced that? Have you ever experienced that in your life where you increase the quality of your life by decreasing your attachments?
Yeah, I mean, the stuff in the house, I totally understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when we moved, we got rid of so much stuff, and I just felt lighter, like
Right.
physically.
Right.
Like, we don't need all this stuff.
Right. And it was bringing you down. It was weighing you
Yeah.
down. Mm-hmm.
I always.
So where do you find the role of meditation in this path?
So meditation is there are different meditation exercises you can do, but the primary thing about meditation is to realize that your awareness is different from your thoughts, and you can decide to let thoughts go, and you are actually attached to your thoughts and attached to thinking, and that your brain enslaves you with thoughts by capturing your attention. And once you realize that, then you'll start to believe you're a soul, because you realize that your brain is working against you and trying to enslave your attention. That's where meditation fits into all of that. Yes.
You know, I was giving example, like
Uh-huh.
every time I lose my phone or keys, I feel like it gets sometimes so frustrating. There are so many things you have to every day remember and
Right.
organize, and
Right.
so I always feel like the farmer in the small village, he's so happier than us, because we are always worried, oh, the house, is it like working, everything is working well, or
Right.
like many small tiny things every day you have to worry about, which they don't have. Of course they have their own worries, but not like constant worries the way the modernization has brought us.
Right. Sometimes it feels like we're working for those things, and they're not working for us, right? Because we have to maintain them and keep them up and all that, and it's like we're wasting time doing that rather than doing the things that we want to do.
You thought that they are going to help you and make your life easier, but it's other way around. Like first you are trying to get those things, make money, work more. You get those things, then maintain them instead of using it for your quality of life. I would say that's what you think,
Right.
but it doesn't happen that way. The more you go, more you buy. It's always a problem.
Right.
Also, sorry, I have a question for him. What do you mean by good quality of life? Because to me, it never stops. Like, it's a greediness in our nature. Every time you make money, like I remember when I was making my first job, I was happy at that time. Then every time I kept getting promotions or raises, I thought, oh, I was happy. But then after a certain time, you start feeling greedy and you're like, no, I'm I'm not happy anymore. But now when I look back 15 years ago, I was happy with the salary I was making. So I think it's the contentment and greediness also that you think, oh, quality of life. I had a quality of life at that point too. Now I understand your whole topic is about Shamniji and stuff, but in our practical life, I feel like happiness is also depending on person to person and not
Yeah.
like
Okay.
how much money you keep making.
Well, let me ask you this: do you have kids?
Yes,
Okay, so when you, how old are they?
7 and 11.
7. So about a couple of years ago, they were still wearing diapers. Did you have access to go, not have to walk miles to a random store? You could drive to a store, get diapers pretty easily. You could get baby food pretty easily. To come here, did you have to walk all the way? No, you could drive. When they're talking about how easy it is for you to get to the bathroom, get to the hospital, get to just like things, medication, all of that. Even like I understand you probably didn't walk here, right? You had access to shelter. Here we're not sitting outside where we're like attacked by the elements. We can sit inside of here. All of this stuff, all of these material things. I understand that you want to be detached from them, but at the same like point, wait, you can't really live without them. Like most of the time, if it was raining, you wouldn't come to this class if we had no shelter, right? So that's what I'm talking about when I say quality of life.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying, like, at least for me, right? I'm at the very bottom of the ladder, and I'm taking like a small step. So at least I can detach with the things that does not impact me a lot. So I can do like a little bit better than there's no way I can get to the point where I can be like sadhvi or anything like that, right? That's way above my capacity. But at least I can try taking a smaller step. Hopefully one day I can get to that.
Let's have another story, a longer one this time. This is the story about Chanda Kaushik. So that's right. So Chanda Kaushik in his previous life was a sage who was kind of clumsy. So one day he was returning from doing his penance in a jungle, and he stepped on a frog and it died. And then a disciple who was with him said, "Hey, you should repent for that mistake. That way you won't bind that karma." And so Chanda Kaushik didn't listen. And then the evening came, and then the same disciple reminded him again, "Hey, before the day is done, just repent for the frog. That way the binding of the karma will be less." And so this made Chanda Kaushik furious that he had to be reminded twice. And so he ran after that disciple with a stick. Okay? And this disciple dodged, and he was running around trying to beat the disciple with the stick, and the disciple was dodging, and eventually Chanda Kaushik ran into a stone pillar, and he died there. And then after that, he went to heaven as a celestial being because he was a very holy sage. After that, he became a monk, and he owned a farm. I guess monks could own farms, but he owned a farm, and he would get mad when people would like break things, like step on plants or things like that on this farm. But he was like pretty far along the spiritual path, but he just would get mad at people for doing this. And then one day a group of boys came in, and they were picking flowers and throwing stones and things like that, and he got really angry. And so he ran after them with an axe. And once again, these boys were like dodging around, dodging Chanda Kaushik, and he fell down and he killed himself because he fell on his axe that he was chasing them with. And so after that, he was born a snake because of that, because he was so angry at the boys that he was born a snake, and he would kill a lot. He lived in a forest, and he would kill a lot of villagers that walked through the forest. So then our hero enters Mahavir, and he says, "I'm going to go through that forest." And then the villagers say, "No, Chanda Kaushik kills everybody that's in the forest." And Mahavir was courageous. He said, "I'm not going to be bothered by that. I'm going to keep going through that forest." And so Chanda Kaushik, of course, comes upon Mahavir, and Mahavir is strong. He's not fearful like everybody else. And that enrages Chanda Kaushik, the snake. And he bites Mahavir on the toe. And instead of doing anything, this white liquid comes out of Mahavir. Some stories say that this blood is white. And all the Tirthankars have white blood. And other stories say that this is milk that is coming out of Mahavir's story.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a little bit controversial. Some people say different things. But anyway, Mahavir Swami says, Chandakoshik, remember who you are. And at that point, Chandakoshik remembers his two past lives. And he remembers that that's why he's a snake right now. Chandakoshik immediately calms down and bows to Lord Mahavir and says, I do not want to cause the slightest harm to any living being anymore, because he realizes his previous actions have caught up with him and is the cause of his current state. And so he goes back into his log and he doesn't bite anybody anymore. But the villagers, of course, are upset. So some of them come and they see that he's kind of calm and they start beating him, and Chandakoshik doesn't do anything. And some of the villagers are like, oh, Chandakoshik has repented. And so they come and they bring like milk and ghee and flowers and they start venerating Chandakoshik. And the ants come because of all the food, and the ants start biting Chandakoshik, and he doesn't do anything. Okay? And then, so he patiently lives out the rest of his life, and he says, oh, this is the result of my bad karma. And then on his death, he again goes to heaven as a celestial being. Okay, so what is the point of this story? So first of all, it reinforces what we talked about earlier, right? It's why we're not celebrating violence by celebrating Mahavir's courage, right? It took courage to face a snake, and that some people might have killed a snake, right? But he did not, so he didn't bind more karma.
Could Mahavir foresee what was going to happen?
At this time, Mahavir was not enlightened, so he didn't have Kevalyan. That happens later. Okay, so remember in the first story, we do not want to be Devrishi, right? That is, we do not want to be Devrishi, we want to be Mahavir. Here, do we want to be Chandakoshik?
No. Oh, yes.
Yes and no, right? Because Chandakoshik grows, right? So here, are we supposed to see ourselves as Chandakoshik or Mahavir here?
But the quality of Mahavir, of not getting scared, but then also the feeling of realization that, your previous birth of what you've done, I think.
Right.
Controlling anger.
Controlling
Letting it go.
letting it go.
Right. So the answer is both, probably, right?
Correct.
We're probably supposed to see ourselves as both. And we're probably more like Chandakoshik than we are Mahavir, right?
That's true.
But that's where we want to get, right?
Is there more life cycles of what happened to Chandakoshik after he went to heaven, or we don't know?
It wasn't in this story. I'd like to know. We just have 3 stories about Mahavir today, but there are kind of a lot more stories. And there's a lot more stories about his previous lives, because his previous lives inform what happens to Mahavir in his very last life. That is, when the farmer puts nails in his ears, or when people do different things, there's very famous stories. That happens as a result of his previous lives, and you can read about those previous lives if you want to. So now is usually the time when I ask, well, how can we package these ideas appropriately for our children? But we don't have to do that now, right? These are already packaged appropriately for our children. That is, they probably know these stories better than us. But what they don't do is think about these stories that like we're supposed to. Like, what do things represent? Who are we supposed to be like in the story? What is this story supposed to help us with? So one of the things that this story is supposed to help us with is remind us that, hey, at the end of the day, think about what you did that day. And think about this Chandakoshik story is supposed to remind us of, that's what we're supposed to be doing at the end of the day. Think about the karma that you did that day. And that helps you helps you not bind karma as much. And 2, it helps you prevent from binding karma, that is, samvar, the next day, because you thought about it. And you know you're going to have to think about it. And then that's how you slowly start holding yourself accountable. Is if I know I'm going to do this bad thing, I know I'm going to have to think about it later, like at 10 o'clock tonight. And I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do this bad thing. And what is that but mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. Another thing we're supposed to think about is it is possible. Okay, so Chandra Kaushik did these things. He ran after these kids with an axe. He did these things. It's possible to come back from that. Okay? It's possible that no matter what you've done, it's possible to get back on the spiritual path. Okay? If you remember who you are. If you remember that you're not a body, okay, you're a soul. It's extremely hard to identify. As hard as it was for you to identify that this was not a piece of paper, I have bad news for you. Guess what? It's harder for you to identify that you're a soul and not a body. And I wish I could rip up your body into tiny little pieces like this, because that would prove to you that you're a soul. But that's what we have to do, okay? We have to fast. We have to do meditation to realize we're not our thoughts. We have to go without health care to see that we're not a body. We have to get rid of our cars and our glasses and our other things to prove to ourselves that we're not a body. People always ask me, well, what can I do? What's the one thing I can do to advance along the spiritual path? Is there like one thing I can do? Because people want things to be easy, and I like that. I like things to be easy. And yes, there is. There is a back door to Jainism. There is a back door to moksha. Okay, you can get there the easy way. What it requires is you believing you're a soul. Okay, how many of us believe we're a soul? It's okay to say yes or no. Just tell me the truth. If you believe you're a soul or not.
Are we believing or perceiving?
Yeah. Do you perceive? Oh, that's a great question. Are you believing or perceiving? Believing.
Well, I believe it, but do I perceive it? No.
Perceiving is the part that comes later. How many of you believe you're a soul?
Believe, yes.
There we go.
This is the back door to Jainism. Once you start believing you're a soul, and you start confirming it, your life will change, because you won't kill that cockroach because you know that it has a soul just like you, because you believe you're a soul. You'll start to make tiny decisions differently throughout your day. You'll start to think differently. You'll start to think differently about food. You're going to start resenting food when you start believing your soul, because you're like, why do I have to spend all this time maintaining my body? I think about food. I have to make the food. I have to clean up after I eat the food. And I did all that. It took me an hour, and the food took me 2 minutes to eat. And I could have been doing so much more. So once you start believing you're a soul, you'll start resenting all the time it takes to maintain your body. Things that you used to like. Things that I used to look forward to. I used to look forward to eating something. I used to look forward to going on a walk. I used to look forward to the sunshine and not being stuck in the rain. And it just doesn't matter anymore, because you start to believe you're a soul. And then you start wondering, well, what can I do about my soul? And then slowly your life will start to change until you get to a point when you realize, I don't need any of this. I'm going to pluck out my hair and I'm going to ask for food. And if people don't give me food, guess what? That's fine. Because I'm a body. I'm not a body. I'm a soul. Questions or comments about that? Yeah.
Wait, so I know for maintaining your body, you eat food and stuff. So I was just wondering, to maintain your soul, what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do? Who has answers? What do you do to maintain your soul? This is very good. We talk a lot about hygiene, right? We all know about physical hygiene, right? We know very, very little about mental hygiene. That is, how to keep our mind clean, how to keep our mind running properly. Almost nobody teaches us that. We only wait till there's a problem, till we diagnose people and say, hey, you need to start living your life differently because you have this diagnosis of the mind. We know zero about spiritual hygiene, right? How do we keep our soul clean? How do we do preventative maintenance on our soul? What do we do?
being mindful,
Mindful.
do meditate, do whatever that samyak jnan, darshan, charitra, follow
Stay
those.
detached.
Detached.
Be attached.
Letting the bad thoughts go.
What? No. What is wrong with your soul? Why is your soul dirty?
Has karma.
It has karma on it, right? How do we clean that karma off our soul? Nirjara, right? We do nirjara, right? And we do samvar to block the karma from attaching to our soul. So how do we keep our soul clean? Is we start understanding why it's dirty in the first place. That is, how do we improve the quality of our life? Is by burning karma, nirjara, by blocking karma, samvar, by understanding that, looking in the book and understanding, hey, there are 8 types of karma. How do I do nirjara? Guess what? It's all in the book. How do I do samvar? Guess what? It's all in the book. And once you start realizing you're a soul, you may open the book and you may look and see what's inside there, and maybe you'll see that there's something there for you. Other questions or comments? Did anybody learn anything about these stories about Mahavir? Did it? And remember, what is the purpose of learning the stories about Mahavir? It's so that when you say Mahavir's name in Logasa, or you say the Mahavir Bhagwan Sutra, that you understand why you're doing it. You're doing it to remember the stories about his life because you want to emulate those, and you use those stories to increase the quality of your life. You use the story of Chandakoshik, you use the story of the demon, and you use the story of Dev Rishi to realize, hey, maybe I'm being Dev Rishi right now. You know? Maybe I'm being Chandakoshik right now. Maybe I'm not standing tall against the demon for the right reasons right now. And then that will help you increase the quality of your life. Other questions or comments? Did anybody not get anything at all from this? That's fine too.
The way this story teaches us, like, face to the reality, like go in the jungle and whatever the issue is, face to it and let it go. If someone's biting you, there might be our own karmas who were haunting you and now it's gone, like Nijara kind of. So those stories teaches us these small things, these big things actually.
Sure, absolutely. And that's why Mahavir was able to face these things with equanimity, because he knew they were his own fault. He knew that he was, whether he got bit by a snake or had lead poured in his ears or had to sit under a tree for 6 months, he knew that it was his own fault. And that's why he was able to weather them with equanimity. So if you understand that the bad things that happen to you are your fault, then you won't react negatively to them and cause you further misery. In addition to the bad thing that's already happening to you, you won't cause yourself further misery by reacting to them. Thank you so much for your time this week. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.